The wind whispered secrets across the vast plains, secrets that only Jedodia seemed to hear. His ranch, a small patch of green against the endless brown, was his sanctuary, but also his prison. Years had passed since his wife, Martha, had succumbed to illness, leaving him alone with only the cattle and the wide-open sky for company. He wasn't unhappy, not exactly, but a deep, gnawing loneliness settled in his bones each evening as the sun dipped below the horizon. Jedodia was a good man, weathered and worn like the barn he tirelessly maintained. His hands, calloused from years of hard work, were gentle when tending to the animals. He possessed a quiet strength, a resilience forged in the harsh landscape. But beneath that stoic exterior lay a heart that yearned for connection, for someone to share the sunsets with, someone to laugh with over a warm cup of coffee in the morning. He'd resigned himself to a solitary existence, believing love and companionship were simply not in the cards for him anymore. He spent his days mending fences, tending to his small herd, and reading old books by the fire at night, a simple routine that filled his days, but left his nights feeling empty. The nearest town was a long ride away, and social gatherings were rare. He lived a life of quiet desperation, hoping for something to change, but not knowing what that something might be. His days followed a predictable rhythm. Sunrise brought the lowing of cattle, a sound Jedodia knew as well as his own heartbeat. He'd rise, stoke the fire, and brew a pot of strong coffee, the aroma filling the small cabin. Breakfast was usually simple, biscuits and gravy, or perhaps some fried eggs if the hens were feeling generous. Then came the work. Fences to mend, cattle to check, and water troughs to fill. The sun beat down mercilessly in the summer, and the wind howled with icy fury in the winter, but Jedodia persevered, his body accustomed to the demands of the land. Evenings were spent tending to the smaller chores, like feeding the chickens and gathering firewood. Sometimes, he'd sit on the porch, watching the stars emerge, each one a tiny spark in the vast darkness. He knew the constellations like old friends, each a reminder of the immensity of the universe and the smallness of his own existence. He wasn't a wealthy man, but he was comfortable. The land provided for him, and he took care of it in return. He had no debts, no worries beyond the occasional drought or harsh winter. But still, that emptiness lingered, a constant ache in his heart. He longed for someone to share the simple joys of his life, someone to ease the burden of solitude. He dreamt of laughter echoing through the cabin, of gentle hands holding his, of a warm body beside him on cold nights. He yearned for a partner, a companion, a love to fill the void within. One sweltering afternoon, as Jedodia was repairing a section of fence near the main road, a cloud of dust announced an unexpected arrival. A stagecoach, its horses lathered and panting, careened to a halt in front of his property. Stagecoaches rarely passed this way, and Jedodia watched with curiosity as the driver jumped down, followed by a handful of passengers. A brief, hurried exchange took place, hushed voices and worried glances. Then, almost as quickly as it had arrived, the stagecoach prepared to leave. Jedodia noticed one woman standing slightly apart from the others, her face etched with distress. She seemed to be arguing with the driver, but he simply shook his head and climbed back onto his perch. Before Jedodia could react, the stagecoach lurched forward, leaving the woman stranded on the dusty roadside, a large, heavy-looking bag at her feet. The stagecoach rapidly disappeared over the horizon, leaving her alone and vulnerable. Jedodia watched, his brow furrowed with concern. What would become of her? Why had they left her behind? He knew he couldn't just stand by and watch. He set down his tools and started walking towards her, his heart pounding with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. This unexpected arrival had shattered the monotony of his life, and he had a feeling nothing would ever be quite the same again. As Jedodia drew closer, he could see the woman's face more clearly. Tears streamed down her cheeks, leaving clean streaks in the dust that coated her skin. She was dressed in a fine traveling dress, now rumpled and stained, and her hair, once neatly arranged, was coming undone. But despite her disheveled appearance, Jedodia noticed a certain grace about her, a quiet dignity that shone through her distress. "Ma'am," he said, his voice gentle. "Are you all right? Can I help you?" The woman looked up, startled. Her eyes, though red and swollen, were a striking shade of blue. I don't know what to do," she stammered, her voice trembling. "They just left me. Said I was too heavy." Jedodia frowned, confused. "Too heavy? What do you mean?" She gestured towards the large bag at her feet. It's all my belongings. They said it was too much weight for the horses, and that I was too much weight as well. They wouldn't take me any further." Jedodiah's gaze shifted to the bag. It was indeed large and appeared incredibly heavy. He bent down and tried to lift it, grunting with the effort. "Goodness gracious," he exclaimed. "What in the world do you have in here? This thing weighs a ton." He looked back at the woman, his heart filled with sympathy. He couldn't imagine being abandoned like this, especially with such a burden to carry. He knew he had to help her, somehow. "My name is Clara," she said, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. I was on my way to meet my fiancé. He sent for me, all the way from back east. We've been corresponding for months, and he seemed so kind in his letters." Jedodia helped her to her feet, his strong hands steadying her. "And where was he supposed to meet you?" "In the next town over, Willow Creek," Clara replied, her voice barely a whisper. "He was supposed to be at the stagecoach depot. But when I arrived, he was there, but he took one look at me and told the driver he wouldn't be needing a bride after all. He said I wasn't what he expected. He said I was too heavy." The pain in her voice was palpable, and Jedodiah's anger flared. How could anyone be so cruel? To send for a woman, to raise her hopes, and then to reject her so coldly? He couldn't fathom such callousness. He looked at Clara, her face streaked with tears, her spirit clearly wounded. He saw not a woman who was too heavy, but a woman who was hurting, a woman who needed kindness and compassion. "Well," Jedodia said, his voice firm. "That fellow was a fool. Plain and simple. No decent man would treat a woman like that. Now, you come on with me, Clara. You're welcome to stay at my ranch for as long as you need. We'll figure something out. You're not alone anymore." Jedodia led Clara towards the ranch house, the heavy bag bumping awkwardly between them. He could feel her trembling slightly, and he offered her a reassuring smile. "Don't you worry, Clara," he said. "We'll get you settled in, and you can rest. Things will look brighter after a good night's sleep." The ranch house was small but clean and comfortable. Jedodia showed Clara to the spare room, a cozy space with a patchwork quilt on the bed and a view of the rolling hills. "You can freshen up here," he said. "There's water in the pitcher, and I'll fetch you a towel." As Clara washed her face and changed into a simpler dress from her bag, Jedodia started preparing supper. He fried up some bacon and eggs, and brewed a fresh pot of coffee. He knew Clara must be exhausted and hungry, and he wanted to make her feel as welcome as possible. He thought about what she had told him, about being rejected for her appearance. It made his blood boil. He'd always valued kindness and character above all else, and he couldn't understand why anyone would be so shallow. He found himself drawn to Clara's gentle nature, her quiet strength, and the sadness in her blue eyes. He felt a protective instinct towards her, a desire to shield her from further hurt. As he set the table, he realized that something had shifted within him. The loneliness that had been his constant companion for so long seemed to have lessened, replaced by a flicker of hope, a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Perhaps, just perhaps, this unexpected arrival was a blessing in disguise. The next morning, Clara awoke to the smell of freshly baked bread. She found Jedodia in the kitchen, humming a cheerful tune as he pulled a loaf from the oven. "Good morning, Clara," he said, his smile warm and welcoming. "I hope you slept well." Clara smiled back, feeling a sense of peace she hadn't experienced since leaving her home back east. "I did, thank you, Jedodia. Your hospitality is truly appreciated. After breakfast, Jedodia suggested Clara take it easy, but she insisted on helping with the chores. She surprised him with her knowledge of farm work. She'd grown up on a farm herself before moving to the city. She milked the cows with a practiced hand, fed the chickens, and even helped him mend a section of fence. As they worked side by side, they discovered a shared love for the land, for animals, and for simple living. They talked about their pasts, their hopes, and their dreams. Jedodia learned that Clara was a talented seamstress and an avid reader. Clara learned about Jedodiah's love for the stars and his deep connection to the ranch. With each passing day, their bond deepened. Clara's presence filled the ranch house with warmth and laughter, chasing away the shadows of loneliness that had haunted Jedodia for so long. He found himself looking forward to each morning, eager to spend time with her, to learn more about her, to simply be in her company. He realized that he was falling in love with Clara, not for her appearance, but for her kind heart, her gentle spirit, and her unwavering strength. And he suspected, with a growing sense of hope, that she might be feeling the same way. News travels fast, especially in small towns. Soon, word of the heavy bride who'd been left behind and the lonely rancher who'd taken her and reached the ears of the townsfolk in Willow Creek. Whispers and rumors spread like wildfire. Some folks were sympathetic to Clara's plight, shaking their heads at the cruelty of her former fiancé. Others, however, were less charitable. They gossiped about Clara's appearance, criticizing her weight and questioning her character. They wondered what Jedodia was thinking, taking in such a woman. She's probably just after his money, one woman sniffed, adjusting her bonnet. A desperate woman will do anything. He's probably just lonely, another added, her voice dripping with pity. Poor Jedodia, he deserves better. The rumors reached Jedodia through the occasional visitor who stopped by the ranch to purchase eggs or offer help with a repair. He heard the whispers, saw the knowing glances, and felt the sting of their judgment. But he refused to let it bother him. He knew what was in his heart, and he knew the truth about Clara. He wouldn't let the narrow-minded opinions of others cloud his judgment. He cared for Clara, and that was all that mattered. He'd always been an outsider, content in his own company, and he wasn't about to change now, not when he'd finally found someone who truly understood him. Let them gossip, he thought. Their words were just empty air. One evening, after a particularly delicious supper that Clara had prepared, a hearty stew with homemade bread, Jedodia and Clara sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant hues of orange and purple. The crickets chirped their evening song, and a gentle breeze rustled through the trees. It was a peaceful, perfect moment. Jedodia took a deep breath, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew what he had to do. He turned to Clara, his eyes filled with love and sincerity. "Clara," he said, his voice a little shaky. "These past few weeks have been the happiest I've had in years. You've brought so much joy and light into my life. I know it hasn't been long, and I know the townsfolk are probably saying all sorts of things, but I can't deny what I feel." He reached for her hand, his calloused fingers gently intertwining with hers. "Clara, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? Would you stay here with me, on this ranch, and share your life with me?" He held his breath, waiting for her answer, his heart filled with a mixture of hope and trepidation. He knew she had been hurt deeply by her previous fiancé, and he didn't want to pressure her. But he also knew that he couldn't imagine his life without her. He needed her, not just to ease his loneliness, but because he loved her, truly and deeply. He waited, the silence stretching between them, broken only by the chirping of the crickets. Clara's eyes widened, and she looked at Jedodia with surprise. His proposal was unexpected, but as she gazed into his sincere eyes, she saw nothing but love and honesty. She thought of her former fiancé, his shallow judgment and cruel rejection. Then, she looked at Jedodia, a man who saw past her appearance, who valued her kindness and her spirit. A tear trickled down her cheek, but this time, it wasn't a tear of sadness, but of joy. "Jedodia," she said, her voice filled with emotion. I don't know what to say. After what happened in Willow Creek, I never thought I'd find happiness again. I never thought anyone would want me. She paused, taking a deep breath. But you've shown me such kindness, such compassion. You've made me feel safe and loved, just for being myself. And I've fallen in love with you too, Jedodia. With your gentle heart, your strong hands, and your unwavering spirit. She squeezed his hand, her eyes shining with happiness. Yes, Jedodia, she said, her voice clear and strong. I will marry you. I will stay here with you, on this ranch, and share my life with you. A wave of relief washed over Jedodia, and he pulled Clara into his arms, holding her close. He knew that their life together wouldn't always be easy, but he also knew that with their love and commitment, they could overcome any obstacle. He had found his partner, his companion, his love. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that he had made the right decision. The wedding was a simple affair, held right on the ranch, beneath the shade of a sprawling oak tree. Jedodia and Clara didn't care for fancy ceremonies or extravagant celebrations. They wanted something intimate and heartfelt, a true reflection of their love for each other. Jedodiah's closest friend, a grizzled old rancher named Hank, served as the officiant. A few neighbors, those who hadn't succumbed to the town gossip, came to show their support, bringing flowers and homemade pies. Clara wore a dress she had made herself, a simple but elegant gown of pale blue fabric. Jedodia wore his best suit, a little worn but clean and pressed. As they exchanged vows, their voices filled with emotion, the love between them was palpable. There were tears, both of joy and remembrance, and heartfelt smiles. Hank pronounced them husband and wife, and Jedodia kissed Clara, a long, tender kiss that sealed their commitment to each other. After the ceremony, everyone gathered for a simple feast, sharing stories and laughter. Jedodia and Clara danced beneath the stars, their hearts filled with happiness. They knew that their life together wouldn't always be easy, but they were ready to face whatever challenges came their way, as long as they had each other. They were an unlikely pair, a lonely rancher and a rejected bride, but they had found love in the most unexpected of places. And that, they knew, was all that mattered. The whispers of the town faded into background noise, their love a beacon shining brighter than any disapproval. Life on the ranch settled into a comfortable rhythm. Jedodia and Clara worked side by side, their efforts complementing each other perfectly. Clara's skills as a seamstress proved invaluable, as she mended clothes and created beautiful quilts to keep them warm during the cold winter nights. She also started a small garden, growing vegetables and herbs that added flavor to their meals. Jedodia continued to tend to the cattle and maintain the ranch, his work made easier by Clara's help and companionship. They faced challenges, of course. There were droughts that threatened their crops, and harsh winters that tested their resilience. But they faced these challenges together, supporting each other and drawing strength from their love. They learned to rely on each other, to trust each other, and to forgive each other. Slowly but surely, the town's attitude began to change. People saw how happy Jedodia and Clara were, how well they worked together, and how much they cared for each other. Some of the town gossips even apologized for their earlier judgments, admitting they had been wrong. Jedodia and Clara welcomed them with open arms, proving that kindness and love could conquer even the most hardened hearts. Their ranch became a haven, a place where everyone was welcome, regardless of their appearance or their past. Jedodia and Clara had built a life together, a life filled with love, laughter, and purpose, proving that true beauty lies within. One rainy afternoon, while rummaging through the attic, Clara stumbled upon her old trunk, the very same heavy bag that had caused so much trouble. She hadn't opened it since arriving at the ranch, its weight a constant reminder of her past rejection. But now, with Jedodia by her side, she felt a newfound courage. "Do you want to see what's inside?" she asked Jedodia, her voice a little hesitant. Jedodia smiled and nodded. "Only if you're ready, my dear." Together, they carried the trunk downstairs and placed it in the center of the living room. With trembling hands, Clara unlocked the latch and lifted the heavy lid. Inside, nestled among layers of old fabric, were not gold or jewels, but family treasures. There was a delicate porcelain doll, a cherished childhood toy. There was a worn leather-bound book, filled with her mother's favorite poems. There was a silver locket, containing a picture of her grandparents. And there was a stack of letters, tied together with a faded ribbon, written by her father during his time in the army. As Clara carefully unwrapped each item, sharing stories and memories, Jedodia listened with rapt attention. He realized that the trunk wasn't just filled with belongings, it was filled with Clara's history, her heart, and her soul. He understood then why it was so heavy, why she had carried it with her despite the burden. It was a tangible link to her past, a reminder of the love and support that had shaped her into the woman she was today. And he loved her all the more for it. Jedodia cherished Clara not for her beauty, though he found her lovely, but for the beauty he saw within her. He admired her strength, her resilience, and her unwavering kindness. He loved her gentle spirit, her infectious laughter, and her ability to find joy in the simplest of things. He often told her, "Clara, you are the most beautiful woman I know. Not because of how you look, but because of who you are." Clara, in turn, cherished Jedodia for his unwavering support, his gentle heart, and his ability to see her for who she truly was. She loved his strong hands, his kind eyes, and his comforting presence. She often told him, "Jedodia, you are the best man I know. Not because of what you have, but because of what you give." They built their life on a foundation of love, respect, and understanding. They faced challenges together, supported each other through difficult times, and celebrated each other's successes. They created a home filled with warmth, laughter, and unconditional love. And as the years passed, their love only grew stronger, proving that true love knows no bounds, sees no flaws, and embraces all shapes and sizes. Jedodia had found his happy ending, not in spite of Clara's weight, but because of the beautiful person she was, inside and out. He had learned that true love is not about appearances, but about the connection between two souls. And he was grateful, every single day, for the day that Stagecoach had left Clara behind, bringing her into his life and filling his heart with a love he never thought possible. The ranch flourished under their combined care. Jedodia's cattle grew strong and healthy, and Clara's garden produced an abundance of fruits and vegetables. They shared their bounty with their neighbors, further cementing their place in the community. Clara's skills as a seamstress also brought in extra income. She created beautiful clothes and quilts for the townspeople, her creations becoming highly sought after. Jedodia, in turn, helped the neighbors with their ranch work, always willing to lend a hand. They worked together seamlessly, their strengths complementing each other perfectly. Jedodia provided the brawn, while Clara provided the brains. He was the steady anchor, while she was the creative spark. Together, they were an unstoppable force. But more than their hard work and their skills, it was their love and their kindness that truly made the ranch flourish. They created a welcoming atmosphere, a place where everyone felt comfortable and accepted. Their home was always open to those in need, whether it was a traveler seeking shelter or a neighbor needing help. They taught the townspeople a valuable lesson, that true worth is not measured by appearance or wealth, but by the content of one's character. And they proved that love, in all its shapes and sizes, is the most powerful force in the world. Their ranch became a symbol of hope, a testament to the transformative power of love and acceptance. They lived a long and happy life together, their love story echoing through the generations. And so, the tale of the lonely rancher and the too-heavy bride became a legend in Willow Creek and beyond. It was a story told and retold, a reminder that love can blossom in the most unexpected places, that true beauty lies within, and that judging others based on appearances is a foolish and hurtful thing to do. Children would often visit the ranch, drawn by the stories of the kind couple who welcomed everyone with open arms. Jedodia and Clara would tell them tales of the stars, of the importance of hard work, and of the power of love. They encouraged the children to be kind, to be compassionate, and to always stand up for what is right. When Jedodia and Clara eventually passed away, they were buried side by side beneath the sprawling oak tree where they had exchanged their vows. Their graves were adorned with flowers and quilts, tokens of love and remembrance from the many lives they had touched. The ranch continued to be a place of welcome and acceptance, passed down through the generations to those who shared Jedodia and Clara's values. And the story of the lonely rancher and the too heavy bride lived on, a timeless reminder that love is the greatest treasure of all, a treasure that knows no limits and embraces all. It was a story of how a kind heart can see beyond the surface, and how true love can conquer all. It was a story that proved that sometimes, the greatest gifts come in the heaviest packages.